Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the MVP Fantasy Football and Sports Podcast. My name is Tyler Johnson, and with me, as always, the great one, the MVP Dynasty legend, Ryan Elke. Ryan,
I like it. I like it. That's out of nowhere.
I had to hit you with the tag, the Dynasty tag. If you want to follow him on Twitch, it's down in the show notes. You can follow both of us on Twitch. We are slowly going to start streaming. We might even switch onto any sort of mixer. We are just going to be streaming for everybody, live streaming the draft that's coming up in 3 weeks. I mean, everyone else's draft I know is coming up quick. So for this episode, we have a mock draft set up along with touching on the news, questions, and then another important announcement about our rankings. We are slowly getting our rankings out to the public. I know Ryan just put his together real quick. I got
my skeleton out there, the skeleton of my rankings. I have not edited them yet. It was just a rough draft right now.
Yeah, so right now it's at the skeleton form, and over this week we should have it ready, and I'm just going to keep posting it in the show notes for anyone that wants to use it, and then we're just going to constantly update it. I know there's a lot of stats. I definitely want to add comment sections in there of what we think about each player as we're as we're ranking them. So there's going to be a lot of information there, and it's only going to grow and grow for your draft, and then also you can use it throughout the season. I know and I didn't tell you this, Ryan, I also want to make another section for how good we do. I'm going to save this first draft, and then I'm going to just follow these guys throughout the season and their fantasy points, and just kind of see where we stack up for our guesses at the beginning of the season.
No, I definitely was. I was thinking about that today, that I make sure, obviously we save it, but at the end of the year, just go back and look and see how we did for our first year doing it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about our rankings and how we're setting it up right before the mock draft. So we'll kind of have that side by side. We'll be using our rankings like we normally do. It's right off the top of our head. We just put in our research, and it's kind of who we like and who we're going to be drafting, and it's in the order of how we are drafting. We're not going to put somebody above somebody just because we think it's possible that they could outproduce them. It's who we want to draft at the time for the upside or for the consistency. So we're going to move right into the news.
So you got any advice for me? Generally.
We have a lot of stories about running backs again, and running backs seem to be the hot subject when it comes to news every week. And
I feel like that's the most important news, though, Tyler. You got to keep. If you're going to listen to any news, go over the running back news, because that's literally the most important thing, I feel.
Yeah, and it's
fantasy football wise,
and it's all about the battles that are happening in camp right now. A lot of it's coach speak. To me, it's a lot of it's coach speak. I know that you have to keep an eye on what injuries happen and at what part of the body the injury is on for some of these guys, because there's a lot of research done that shows, and a lot of data that shows certain injuries that linger are almost a reason to drop them in rankings. And we're going
hamstrings.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch out.
Groin. Oh my
Watch out for the hamstring injuries. Those are like the worst. If they still have like the hamstring injury going into our actual draft, I'm gonna knock them down a lot in my list.
Yeah. Just because the player name, but then also in the injury. So we're going to jump right into kind of a little bit of a hype piece here with Jerry Jones. He comes out with a hot take about running backs, and then now he's coming out saying that there's going to be new contracts for Amari, Zeke, and Dak. And you have to think that that is a great idea for the Cowboys, because getting these guys contracts now, if they think that they're going to be their long-haul wide receiver, running back, quarterback combo, it's good to get that contract done now and try to make it a long-term because of how young these guys are, and you're actually going to be saving money rather than wasting it if you get those contracts done now. And I know that
I feel this is how you got to think with the Cowboys right now with them three. Does Jerry Jones see these guys as part of the future down the road? If so, you do it now. Like you said, the money would be lower than what it would be in, a year, 2 years. You lock them up right now, and those are the core of your franchise.
And you think about it, too, the smart thing to do is get it for about 5 or 6 years, and then all these guys will be just past their prime, going close to 30, and then you start getting fresh legs in again. It almost makes sense.
You draft the replacement, and with that free money, the freed up money, maybe build the defense up, whatever. I mean, there's plenty of different avenues to choose from, and like you said, it basically, after Zeke's big contract that he gets here, I feel like, he'll be on the downside of his career going on like the Adrian Peterson route.
Yeah, as soon as his contract starts coming up.
As soon as the next one's up.
And then they can, now that they lock those guys up, they can kind of build pieces around them, start building up that number one offensive line, and then work on their defense. They can spend money elsewhere now and not have to worry about having a stud at each position. I know I wouldn't say Dak as a stud, but as a young quarterback, I think he's above the middle ground when it comes to the NFL. And I think that's all you need, as long as you can get a good defense and then have Cooper and Zeke as your wide receiver running back combo. It would just make sense.
Prescott can't be older than 25.
No, I don't think so either. I think he's only been in the league for 4 years, something like that.
Yeah, so he's pretty young.
So then the next
26. He's 26.
Is he 26? Okay.
Yeah.
So then the next thing I wanted to touch on is the first running back. I don't think it's the most exciting news, but it was kind of a surprise that Donta Foreman got cut from the Texans and then re-waived onto the Colts. And I know me and you were talking about this, Ryan. I don't see it as anything too crazy, but the only thing that it makes me question now is who's the backup for Lamar Miller. I know they have a young guy there. Chris Warren is there.
Oh, they picked up Warren from the Raiders?
Yeah.
Okay. I know he shined big time in camp last year, and I think preseason. Then he got hurt and was out for the season. He reminds me of like a poor man's Chris Carson, though.
Let me make sure. Let me make sure that I'm correct.
Yeah, double check that. But just talking about Lamar Miller and that situation over in Houston, I don't think the backup running back is actually on the roster right now.
Yeah, actually, they're just talking about Chris Warren. So yeah,
okay.
Lamar Miller as the one, and then now we're just trying to figure out who's the two, because everyone was talking about Foreman as possibly taking over. Lamar Miller is just kind of that boring running back, and they need to put someone else in. Now he's not even on the roster, so I wonder what they're thinking over there.
They're waiting for the cuts. They're gonna find somebody to back up or split with Lamar Miller, or maybe just kind of like a third down specialist type guy. I could see like Shady being cut by the Bills and signing there and kind of doing like a split with him. I think it would be good for Shady's career. I think he would fit with the offense very well. O-line there is not the greatest, but Shady can do. I mean, he can catch, though. That's the thing. Lamar Miller never really was a PPR type running back.
No, and he's always been very boring. He's got kind of that consistent.
Yeah, he gets the volumes. I feel like he runs for over 1,000 every year. The touchdowns just aren't there, and if he's not catching the ball, you need touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. And you have the close to top 3 ranked quarterback on the team. You have the number 1, number 2 wide receiver in the league, and you need that offensive line. You need to build up that offensive line, I believe, first, because, I mean, Watson is just running around like crazy. I remember last year how I think he was one of the top sacked quarterbacks in the league.
That's why I have him very high on my rankings, but that is worrisome.
Yeah. He's
number 2 on my list. So I think if he stays upright, the guy's going to produce like major numbers, but the offensive line is being so shaky kind of scares me.
Yeah. And
on Deshaun Watson's side, though, he's got wheels, so he can escape.
Yeah, exactly. And also I wanted to touch on every game. Touching on the Colts. I don't think that it impacts Mac at all. I think this is just we're gonna bring you onto the team, and then we're just gonna check you out. We're gonna see maybe what Houston was missing, or if Houston was correct to cut him, and he comes onto the Colts, and he's a 3rd string, 4th string guy, and either gets let go or
either way.
Yeah,
it's an Achilles injury, man. I know it happened when he was really young. What was he, 22 years old when it happened? 23, 22, around there. So maybe he can recover, but I don't think it's ever been done. A running back recovering from an Achilles injury.
Because he came into the league in 2017. He played 10 games. He started in 1. He wasn't too impressive. He only had 300 yards, and then he tore his Achilles when he threw his 22. And
he was having a good game, though. I'm pretty sure he had a 2-touchdown game over 100 yards at that point, and then he tore his Achilles. So maybe he was starting to break out. But
yeah, he had a receiving touchdown in that game. Just the receiving one. Yep. So he was 2 for 2 in targets. So
yep.
I guess we'll keep monitoring it. But right now, Donta Foreman does not look like a good pickup. If you have him on Dynasty, I would be scared to have him. We'll see. He went to a running back core that already has a young guy, and how they either work with him is going to be the future. So
I mean, you're hoping in Dynasty if you have him, you're not cutting him right now. You hold him.
Yeah, exactly. You at least want to see what the
see what the diagnosis is. Is he looking healthy? Whatever. But you never know. Right now, you just hold him.
And so the next news, I kind of have two of Ryan's guys here I was going to talk about. We're going to be talking about Jalen Samuels as a significant part of the offense. It is quite the hype for Steelers to come out and let people know that Jalen Samuels is going to be, being part of the offense in Pittsburgh is great. If he really becomes a significant part, I can see him as like the James White kind of sleeper where you draft him down in the 8th to 10th round, and he comes out and he's a PPR monster. I can see him getting more receptions than James Conner this year.
And before this news even came out, I have James Conner as my RB13, so I wasn't even high on him already. I know the fantasy industry is very high on James Conner.
Yeah, a little too high.
I tend to go in the other direction on that.
Yeah.
I just feel James Conner's not going to get the Le'Veon Bell treatment, and that is what drove Le'Veon Bell to that stardom, was the opportunity and the volume, and I don't see James Conner doing that. They want to mix it in, and Jalen Samuels is going to get a lot of that work.
Yeah, and you got to think, too, last year on his rookie debut, he came in at the end of the season. He probably helped some people win.
He was on my championship roster, so I guess I have a soft spot for him. You know what I mean? He's high in my book.
And I know that
he helped me win.
When me and Ryan were talking about him earlier, Jalen Samuels, and it talked about significant part. I don't take too much away from James Conner. I know Ryan might take a little bit more than I would, but when I read significant part, I almost think that it's possible that he goes back to his tight end / wide receiver roots.
You know what?
And
yeah,
you can see him both
like
on
Cohen, dude. Like Cohen. Yeah. So like a decent comparison. They're going to probably use him all over the field. So I see where you're coming from with that. And if that's true, then Conner, he stays at my RB13 still.
Yeah, and you can see them both on the field at the same time. I bet you there's a lot of sets where they're both on the field. You got Juju, and then you have James Washington or Moncrief. So and Moncrief has some upside. I heard it's trending in the right direction now after that injury that we were talking about last week. So we'll keep monitoring that. And then
I like the Moncrief situation, Tyler, because he's a deep threat, and that's what they need. He'll just because Juju's not necessarily a deep threat. Like
he's more control.
Yeah, exactly. So Moncrief can be that streak, the run the streak route like Antonio Brown. And
you try to like implement a little part of what Antonio Brown was causing for Big Ben. So the two people I wanted to talk about a little bit, I just saw it here, was we were talking about Sony Michel, that he was getting a lot of pass catching on this last report, along with Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders was the most impressive running back in Philly. So just touching on both of these guys, Ryan, if you want to talk about Sony Michel, what happens if he's getting a few more targets than 20?
I predicted this. Now, like I said, I don't want to go back to a couple months ago when I was super high on Michel, and then a few weeks ago I was kind of down on him because of the injury and whatnot. But
yeah,
it's just kind of what I saw happening. Like, the guy can catch. I know he had less than 10 receptions last year, but that was because James White was the legit specialist for that. This year, I could see maybe there's a potential. This could happen. It's not out of the realm of possibilities that James White's work gets cut back. Maybe even like 50%, and they try to get Sony Michel mixed in as the early down back. He'll probably split that with Harris, but he'll also be catching the ball. So that will keep Michel's value high as White would go down, and Harris would just be, I don't think he would be fantasy relevant right now, but it wouldn't affect Michel as much if he started catching the ball out of the backfield,
Yeah, and when it comes to Harris, too, I feel like that's just more of a stash play because you almost have that feeling Michel is going to get hurt this year.
That's the thing. Exactly.
I know that he was a rookie, and we'll see if it trends towards kind of like a yearly, you kind of tweak in games, you come out. That's why James White's being drafted so high, and a lot of people are very high on James White. It's because they know that Sony Michel can run the ball a ton, but then he also can get them tweaks that brings him out, and then James White just breaks off huge receptions, and it could also be Harris as well that takes over some of that work. So, but if Sony Michel comes in and starts catching passes, you could get a similar situation like Kerryon Johnson, but just like a hyped up version of Kerryon Johnson if you're getting those type of receptions. So
I just feel like Sonny Michel with receptions, like that's an RB1.
That 100%.
If he's healthy,
100%.
you know what I mean? Like that's a solid RB1.
He was an RB1 just with the amount of rushing he was, amount of attempts he was getting, and you add in some passing, and he's close to the top 5, if not top 10 for sure. So
yeah, I'm with you on that.
And then Miles Sanders. I mean, I'm not a big believer in Miles Sanders, but I know a lot of people are hyping him up. Is there anything that you would be interested in Miles Sanders? You have him in Dynasty, Ryan. Did you draft Miles Sanders?
I didn't. I took Montgomery, and then middle of that round, Jordan took Sanders, which was I was going to try to get him in the wraparound when it came back. But
we were talking about Jordan Howard.
I still like Jordan Howard because Samuels has been hurt twice already.
Yeah. Yep.
There's big news. He is a good running back. He's very talented. He probably is the most talented running back on that roster. So the news, it's not they're not lying. They're not BSing.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't see Miles Sanders being like a relevant like fantasy guy until maybe week 6, week 7. Then I could definitely see him take over the backfield. Yeah,
and you know that if they have Jordan Howard, they're going to use him. It might just be like a sprinkle of both of them. I don't know. I see him as having those receptions is what's going to help him become fantasy relevant, because the rushing, I don't know, I can see them splitting pretty close to around 10, a little bit over 10 each within each other. So
there's just a lot of running backs there too. That's just it's scary.
It's a murky situation. 5. Okay, well then let's move on. We'll keep an eye on Miles Sanders.
Still targeting Jordan Howard late in the double-digit rounds. There's nothing to lose there. I mean, if Miles Sanders takes a job, you can cut Jordan Howard.
Yeah, exactly. You're drafting him at a point where, I mean, Miles Sanders is a couple rounds before him. So,
and if Miles Sanders gets hurt again and whatnot, I mean, Jordan Howard is the guy to have at that point, and he'll produce much better than a double-digit round guy.
Yeah, he'll be getting a lot of work. So let's talk about, I know that was something that I brought up before, keeping an eye on Carlos Hyde is what I was saying before, and now they come out and they say he's taking advantage of Williams' absence. So Damian Williams going down, well, not going down, he walked off the practice and it was getting looked at, and I know for sure Carlos Hyde was going to jump in there and impress a little bit, because, I mean, you have to remember when Carlos Hyde came in and was taking snaps, what was it, in Cleveland?
Yep.
And he looked great. He was an RB1 in a few weeks.
For about 5 weeks in a row, yeah.
So we had the idea that what if it's kind of the same situation, and then now they go into the season already seeing Carlos Hyde, and they turned it into almost a committee. When we thought that Damian Williams was going to be that.
That is worrisome. That is worrisome. Damian Williams is a smaller back, so it potentially could happen, but Damian Williams is still... Like, if they start splitting, I think Damian Williams, 3rd round still.
Yeah,
I mean, high-powered offense. He's going to catch the rock a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a high-powered offense. It's a good reason to have him. But, I mean, Damian Williams has only started 7 games in his 5-year career. So a lot of people are just using that recent, he helped me win a Super Bowl last year, and they're going to ride him into this season. But you got to remember, there might be guys on that team, like Carlos Hyde might be a better running back than Damian Williams. I mean, we saw him in Miami, and he wasn't anything special. He's never even been over 300 rushing yards in a season.
Yeah, man. Here's the thing. He's one of the guys that's going in the top 2.5 rounds that I see as over 50% bust rate at this point. Like, it's just a guy that he's not a safe pick, in my opinion.
He's been getting very close.
He can be dominant, for sure. He can be dominant, and he can be your RB1, potentially. But he's kind of scary to me. Like, he hasn't proven anything much. He hasn't proven much in the NFL. You have a small sample size with him. Yes, the offense is literally that's the driving factor of why Damian Williams is where he's being drafted.
Yeah.
Because he was put in a perfect opportunity.
Exactly. And I feel like it's similar to like in Pittsburgh where you throw somebody in that high-powered offense and you know he's going to produce. I mean, it doesn't matter who they had in KC. And I mean, maybe Kareem Hunt just looked that much better because of the system he's in. But we're talking about the number one offense in the last year's season. It could have been anybody. So Damian Williams just flashed, and he's the new hotness right now. But I do see a possibility of him. Maybe he should be drafted in the 4th or 5th, kind of like a Kenyon Drake, where maybe we should be that scared about him. He's
better than Kenyon Drake. I don't know if he's even better than Kenyon Drake.
You put Kenyon Drake on KC.
Put Kenyon Drake on the Chiefs, and I think he outperforms Damian Williams.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were.
So I guess that's a good comparison. And you got to think it was Kenyon Drake and Damian Williams over in Miami when Jay went down, and Kenyon Drake ended up, I think, playing more.
Yeah. I mean, he never started a game in Miami, so, or maybe he started 4 games in Miami, and that was in the last season, 2017. Okay, well, we'll move on. We'll keep monitoring that, and that's what this preseason's for. We're going to watch a few of these games. These guys are going to be battling it out, and the coaches want to see it. So we're going to see. We probably won't see much of Damian Williams because of his injury, but if these backups start chipping away at his some of his rushing attempts, we're going to see a running back by committee, and it might be worth keeping an eye out on some of these guys. So
it's trending in that direction for sure.
And then talking about another location that could be a pretty good, interesting committee and someone to watch out for, we got Matt Breida. And Matt Breida has been one guy that I've heard a lot of experts talk about. And they're like, oh, he's worth picking up in the last round. He's worth kind of stashing and seeing because he was a great running back last year. I'm pretty sure he was an RB1 for a few weeks, RB2 for most.
Down the stretch.
And he was playing like a man possessed. He wouldn't get injured. He was playing through injury, and he was still proceeding to put up these numbers.
Yeah, I remember the one game. It looked like he tore his ACL, and the dude's back out there in like 2 possessions. I'm like, what the hell? Matt Breida's back in.
So, I mean, I believe that Tevin Coleman is the person to own there.
For sure.
But and then McKinnon is almost like an afterthought. I mean, I would put him as
McKinnon right now, Tyler. McKinnon right now, if you're drafting right now, you stay away from him. You have to. He had the flare up in the knee where he couldn't even practice anymore because of from the ACL injury. So his knee like ballooned up, and that's scary. You got to wonder what his outlook is.
Yeah, and you got to talk about the amount of hype that was behind McKinnon when he went over there and he got injured, and it was still it's still hanging on. It's almost like they had Deonta Foreman when he had so much hype, and it kind of stuck with him after the injury. I don't know if we're ever going to see McKinnon as a number 1 running back on a team pretty much anymore. He flashed.
Crazy thing is, Tyler, he never was. He never was. Even when, what was it, Adrian Peterson went down, or what happened over there in Minnesota at the time. He had a couple decent games, but he was literally the only guy there, though. He was in the game the whole time. So the guy he's not that great of a running back. He was super hyped up, and last year he was going at the end of the 2nd round, kind of like Damian Williams, and into the 3rd round. That's where he was going last year before he tore his ACL.
Yeah,
so it's a scary situation for him. I don't know where he's exactly going in drafts, Tyler. Are you able to pull up ADP on him?
The AB, I'll pull up the ADP.
I'm actually really interested to see where he's going.
I'll look up Matt Breida's ADP.
Matt Breida, look up McKinnon's ADP. I want to know that one. But Matt Breida, if I'm choosing, and I feel like Breida's going probably a handful of rounds later than McKinnon at this point, but I feel like that's going to switch it, or it's probably going to flip-flop.
So you have McKinnon.
Pretty damn good. He's got to have.
McKinnon's ADP is okay. So I got Breida. Breida's ADP is just before. Nope, 145 ADP. So I'll have to
change.
And then you have McKinnon at 106. So 106.
So a handful of rounds. Yeah, that's gonna switch it up. That's gonna switch up though. Keep an eye on the McKinnon situation. That affects the whole backfield. Say he comes back and he progresses. It becomes a murky backfield. Then you just got to keep an eye on it. At that point, you go Tevin Coleman, and then that's the safest bet.
So you're talking about McKinnon around the 8th round, and then you're talking about Matt Breida around the 12th round.
I take Breida all day.
I have Breida above McKinnon in my rankings. So, and I know you probably do too.
I don't even have McKinnon in. Oh yeah, I do. McKinnon's 48.
Yeah.
on my list. And
Oh,
Breida
man.
is 39. So, yes, I do have him
There
high.
you go. So, I mean, these rankings look great. There's something great to look at for when you have a question on what's the best, what's the worst for when we're drafting them. We have the average ADP, their bye week. We got a ton more that we're going to be adding to this, but it's very nice to be able to find and search these players, and then you have that information right in front of you right away. And let's get into, that's it for the running backs. We're going to jump into 2 quarterbacks here. And what's your first thoughts when you hear that Andrew Luck's calf believes he is going to be ready for week 1 of the season?
It's actually, for me, it's depressing, man. I have high hopes for the Colts. I think they're a legit Super Bowl contender, and then hearing this news scares me. For one, I have TY in Dynasty, and I literally have TY probably for one good year and another, I don't know, decent season maybe next year. So I'm looking for TY to have a great year this year so I can ship him in the offseason, and that literally his success depends on Andrew Luck. So with them saying they believe he'll be ready by week 1 really scares me. Like, it's a red flag.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to be scared. You drafted him in Dynasty. Andrew Luck it seems like his whole career, there's always something, like some kind of stupid injury that holds him up.
And he seems like one of those players, too, where it's like, man, I should have known when you take him. I mean, Andrew Luck, he was primed to be a top 3 quarterback this year, or top 5 quarterback this year.
It's not even out of the realm he finishes number 1, Tyler, if he's healthy. Legit.
Exactly.
I would not be surprised if he was the number 1 quarterback.
And it really worries me that they're going to use the word believes for week 1, because that almost means that it's just like an injury where it lingers. If they believe it's week 1, we've heard that before a couple of years ago when they believed that he was going to come back, and then he never came back for the entire season.
He missed the whole year. It believed he'll be back week 2, 3.
It was early. It was early, and then he never came back, and everyone's wondering. They just kept pushing it and pushing it back and back, and then eventually he just didn't even come in for the season. I mean, what if his calf injury is hurting? He plays. He goes out week 1, doesn't play. The backup's in. We're all wondering, and all of a sudden we don't see him for a few more weeks. So it's something to if you're drafting and we don't hear anything else besides this, I'm dropping him probably to QB5. He's going to be kind of below Aaron Rodgers, down in that range. So
I'm with you on that. I drop him at QB. Probably QB5 under Rodgers.
So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Like all these news, it's something that during this preseason, it's just going to need to hear a few more news, and every week we'll touch on it. And then lastly, and I know Ryan's pretty excited about this one, we're going to start our hype train. We're going to get into the quarterback that is he taking Michael Vick's shoes? Because we have the man, the myth, the legend coming from the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, who is, for some reason, everyone's talking about his throwing ability is getting like enormously better. And I can't understand how one offseason is going to fix Lamar Jackson's throwing.
I understand, though, Tyler. Last year, he was horrible. He was horrible at the QB position, passing-wise.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can see him he has to improve. Now he knows he's a starter. He's putting in the work. Maybe he was a little upset last year because he wanted to be a top 15 pick and come into a starting position, and he didn't. You never know where the mindset was. This year, I'm pretty high on him. Right now, I do have him at 14. I kind of want to jump him up, but it's hard to put him above like Russell Wilson, Goff, Cam Newton, Carson Wentz, stuff like that. Like, it's hard to do that, but I think as preseason moves on, I could potentially see him going up my list, and he is one of my targets later in the draft if I skip quarterbacks, which is more than likely going to happen.
And they are talking about letting him run the ball, that they're not scared about him running. And then
did they say he's going to run more?
Yeah, they said he was going to run more, and it's scary.
He was already averaging over 100 yards a game, Tyler.
I know. In his 7 games starting, he had 700 yards, just below 700 yards, 5 touchdowns in rushing, and that's under 147 attempts. That's insane. And then, I mean, I'm not going to touch on his passing yards. If you want to know, he did complete about 58% at 1,200 yards, and that's in 7 games. He had 3 interceptions to his 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, you're talking about a very poor, but you have the floor of running. And if he's going to run more and he's improving in passing, we all might need to move him up our list a little bit. Yeah,
Here's the thing, Tyler. Look at this. Let's break it down like this. Say he does just run for. It's impossible for him to run for 100 yards a game. Like that's 1,600 yards on the ground. I'm closer to probably like 1,200. But let's just say he averages 80 rushing yards a game and a rushing touchdown, just one, right?
That's incredible. That's Cam Newton.
So what is that? What is that? 14 points, right there. That's without any passing.
I mean, 14 points, and then you just hope that he throws maybe 150 yards and a
150 yards and another touchdown, and you're already in
20 plus.
I feel like he's destined to be a QB1 this year. I mean, it shouldn't. There's a lot of big names on the quarterbacks. That's why another reason why you should wait to draft your quarterback, because there's names up and down this damn board. Like you can get a guy that's going to produce fantasy numbers through 24. You know what I mean? Like Sam Darnold is my 24th quarterback, and even he's not the ideal guy to have as your number one starting quarterback. But
he can throw the ball.
I still feel like he's going to put numbers up this year.
He's got some wide receivers that we trust.
I have the GOAT at 25. Everyone, everyone's gonna be like, "Wow, this guy's an idiot." But Tom Brady is my 25th quarterback. He's just nothing special to me anymore. Yes, he can win. Yes, he probably win another Super Bowl, but that's gonna be dink and dunk and. Let's just game plan all 5-yard passes. So,
well, how about this? Next week we're gonna touch on our rankings. I'd like to go over our rankings and we'll kind of yes. And then once we start, I think next week we'll go two. We're gonna go two podcasts a day, and I want to touch on just a separate position every podcast. So we're gonna try and put one out. What do we say? Tuesday and Thursday, and then when we get to the season, we'll switch it to. Try and get one before Thursday so we can get people ready for the Thursday game, and then put one out Saturday. Try to get, or that's the live stream. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I want to. Once the season happens, I literally like every Sunday morning. I'm wondering if we can do like a live stream on Twitch. I'm pretty sure they implemented that, but I'm not sure. Like just to go live for like 2 hours before the game and just talk.
I have actually
them game like the games that day and.
After the podcast, let me know because I have a great idea. Yeah. I heard something on a separate podcast I listened to, and I have a great idea for doing a joint stream. So look for that on Sunday mornings. Man, I would love to just jump into a stream with you, get some people listening, and we're gonna talk about what our plans are, who we're starting, who we're sitting, injuries,
sits, hot takes, all kinds of good stuff.
All right, well, Ryan, get the mock draft ready. I'm just going to go a little bit over Lamar Jackson, just a little bit, because picking him up, and actually I'm going to bring up my rankings here for QBs. I want to look at kind of where Lamar Jackson sits. He's at 16 right now for he's right in that range of like Dak Prescott, Ben Roth. I'm moving him up. He's going to be similar to like a Jameis Winston, Kyler Murray range for me. And he's going as the 131, so that's right after the 10th round. So that's the end of the 10th round. I mean, that's a steal. That's where you should be drafting your quarterbacks anyways. I mean, there's not much people after him that you're going to get that's going to have the possibility of being a top 5 quarterback.
Would you say Lamar Jackson, like 10th round?
Yeah, he's end of the 10th round right now.
Okay. So, I mean, that's where I planned on targeting him, actually. So that kind of works out.
So I'm going to use this exact list that I'm looking at for when we start doing our rankings. And what we did is we had a random draft order today. Ryan got the 2nd pick, and I'm over here looking at the 5th pick. So we're drafting from the 2 and the 5, and this is a 10-man league. So we'll also be doing 12-man leagues. So if anyone is drafting in a 12-man league, just make sure you let us know that you're in one. We'll definitely pick up a 12-man league, and we'll do some more 12-man mock drafts. I would love
to go RB0. That's my favorite strategy to use. If you do it correctly, it's a very it's not a strategy for everybody. You really have to know your stuff because you're gambling late on running backs. So I'm 2nd. Obviously, I have to go RB.
Yep.
McCaffrey went number 1. I took Zeke at 2.
Okay.
I think,
if the draft was today, you'd still take Zeke at 2?
Yeah, I would. I think I'm fairly confident his deal is going to get done.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that Saquon went to 3. Usually he's the 1 or 2, and then Kamara obviously at the 4 then. And then I went with DeAndre Hopkins. I still have him as my number 1 wide receiver off the board, so I'm going to take him there. I don't like the David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, anyone being picked there at the 5 because DeAndre Hopkins is just that good of a wide receiver. And then it went around the turn. DJ went, Le'Veon, Connor, Adams, Thomas, a lot of the wide receivers, and I was able to pick up the last good top-end wide receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster. So I started off with wide receiver, and oh my goodness, I have someone that dropped to me.
You have Hopkins and Juju right there. That's nice. So now after you, it went Kelsey, Chubb, and then to me, it was between Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon. So I went with Dalvin Cook. Joe Mixon with his offensive line issues kind of scares me. So I'm going to go with Dalvin Cook, and I feel like if he's healthy, he's a top 6 running back this year. So I paired Dalvin Cook with Ezekiel Elliott, and then it went Joe Mixon, Damian Williams. So that guy has McCaffrey, Mixon, and Williams, and that left me with Big Mike Evans as my wide receiver 1. So
I'll take that all day.
Dalvin Cook and Mike Evans. It's a great start. Like I'm really liking a top 3, top 4 pick, even top 5, Tyler. Top 5 pick in this year's drafts. Like the first 2.5 rounds are just stupid stacked. Like you get great players.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe the value for the first 2 rounds, and just like you have the 10th round, that's gonna be 2 stars just sitting there.
Exactly.
And I'm looking. So it went to me. So after you picked Mike Evans, then Adam Thielen went, Melvin Gordon, and then I'm sitting here looking at Keenan Allen, and I cannot pass up the value of Keenan Allen as it goes to the middle of the 3rd.
Right
so I went triple wide receiver, and then it fell to me here. So then Patrick Mahomes afterwards, T.Y., Marlon, Zach Ertz, Kerryon Johnson, Fournette, Aaron Jones, Stephon Diggs, Derrick Henry, Amari Cooper, and now it's on me. And obviously I have the 3 stud wide receivers. I want to back them up with a running back. And I'm looking at Devontae Freeman. Do I want to take that risk for the huge upside? Josh Jacobs, I think he's got a pretty good floor and could get a lot of workload. But I'm going to go with kind of the proven Freeman. I'm going to take Freeman.
I was going to say Freeman for you right there was good. I like that pick.
I think he holds a little bit of stability. They talked about using Ito, but I don't see him anywhere near the talent that Freeman is. And if Freeman can stay healthy, what a solid pick.
I feel like I got a question for you. So you took Devonta Freeman, but what if Amari Cooper, who went right before you went, right? What if he was available? Do you put him in your flex?
No, I would go Freeman still. I like a lot of the wide receivers going into the next couple of rounds. So if I pick my flex up in like the 6th, 7th, 8th, I would be plenty happy with that. So, and I mean,
all right, I like how you constructed your team right now. It's a very good start. I mean, Devonta Freeman could definitely return RB1 value right there. I'm on the board here. George Kittle is still there. I'm not too high on the tight ends. I want to lock up wide receivers here. Probably. I want to get.
You got 5.
Yeah, I'm going to go Brandon Cooks here. I'm going to see. This guy doesn't need running. Oh, wow. He took Josh Jacobs. Unbelievable. So I gambled on that right there because of this reason. He started with McCaffrey, Mixon, and Damon Williams. And I figured, why would he take Josh Jacobs? Because that was going to be my next pick here. But he went Chris Godwin and Josh Jacobs. So Josh Jacobs is on his bench.
And you have to think, too, maybe if it wasn't a bot drafting, that he would probably go Robert Woods. I would assume that it would go Chris Godwin, Robert Woods
right there would have been I don't know.
So
here's my predicament, Tyler. George Kittle right here, great value, 5th round.
And then you're looking at Robert Woods, but you just drafted Cooks, so I mean, I would pretty much scratch him off.
I'm not going to take. I don't like Robert Woods this year, not as much as everyone else. The general consensus on Robert Woods is really hyped.
Okay.
You're running. I'm going with my boy. Okay. I'm going to go with my boy Kenny G. I took Kenny Galladay over George Kittle. Everybody, I'm just not. George Kittle scares me a little bit. I don't know what his rapport is with Garoppolo. Last year it was Nick Mullins that was dominating targets, so it's a little scary. I mean, George Kittle is a dominant player. How long is I just don't know the rapport between them two. I haven't heard much, so I'm going to go with Kenny Galladay. I've already seen some nice highlights of him in camp. I follow the Lions on Facebook, so.
All right, so I'm looking at a pick here where Robert Woods is still on the board, and unlike Ryan, I think Woods has a pretty good floor when it comes to a flex position. And I'm also looking at James White in the 5th round. I still feel like the 5th round is a little early for James White. I would like to get him in the 6th, but I know that a lot of people are just, if they want him, they're going to take him. I'm going to go with Robert Woods here just because lock
You
up my
have
flex
to.
then.
You have to, Tyler.
He,
You have
he-
Robert Woods in your flex, dude. He's a legit high-end wide receiver too,
Dang. So
possibly low one.
I was hoping that either James White or Sony Michel was going to come around because there was kind of two solid guys that I would take either or. And now I'm a little bit this is what I was kind of thinking of, where I have 4 wide receivers and 1 running back. And here's where kind of the wide receivers, like I was talking about the 6th, 7th, 8th, where you can take like a if you wanted like a Ridley or a DJ Moore or a Mike Williams, Alshon Jeffrey. That's kind of a good flex position type of guy. So I'm kind of forced here to take either Tariq Cohen. I guess I'm not forced, but I definitely want one of these guys, and I don't want him to miss out on a Tariq Cohen or a Tevin Coleman. I'm going to go with the, I'm going to take Tariq Cohen. I'm going to take Cohen. I had him last year. He had a lot of good, he's a PPR monster. That's kind of what we're drafting with is PPR. And he's similar to a, kind of how I wanted James White, where he's going to be tossed all over the field. And it doesn't hurt my feelings that Montgomery's going to be the next up and coming. I think Cohen is still going to get his. So
now at my spot, George Kittle's gone, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I actually want my target here is Hunter Henry. I'm very high on him. I think he is the next Zach Ertz.
Okay, I can see it.
Or better.
He's had some hype.
Yeah. So right here, I'm thinking I could go wide receiver depth. Well, I'm going for a flex play right here, actually. So, Tyler, let's see here.
Well,
Tyler
if I was
Boyd
in
might
your
be the pick,
position,
honestly. Boyd or Mike Williams?
I'm very low on Tyler Boyd this year.
Are you really?
I'm going to drop him due to the AJ Green injury, and then I'm also going to.
Ooh, I see a guy.
I'm going to stray away from him. If I was you, I'd probably end up with like
Robbie
that.
Anderson or Tevin Coleman. One of the
I was
two.
thinking Tevin Coleman, but if he drops to me, I'll take him. And then Mike Williams, he's pretty good. Dante Pettis, I don't know if I'd take the chance on Dante Pettis. A lot of people are hyping him up, but San Francisco
Robbie
just
Anderson.
okay.
He's the only receiver there I think that is capable of doing anything. Adam Gase is going to find ways to get him open. He's 6'3", runs a 4. He's really fast too.
Yeah, and
he's playing for a contract. I'm pretty sure this is his final year.
And Quincy got his.
They
were giving contracts to everybody except for Robbie Anderson, which is kind of weird if they're thinking of not using him or what their deal is there. But so I chose Tevin Coleman. He dropped to me, so it was between Tariq Cohen and Tevin Coleman. And if Coleman's going to drop to me, I'll take him. I can take that chance because I already have my wide receivers. And this is kind of like the 0 wide receiver strat that me and Ryan really like to do. He does it a lot each year, and he's very successful with it, where you take those 3...
RB0.
Or, I'm sorry, yeah. Wide receiver heavy, RB0.
Yeah.
And it's really not RB0. I would say it's wide receiver heavy, and then you keep your eye open for those running backs when the 4th through the 8th, you try to snag like 3 or 4 of them. So I'm going to pick here. There's a lot of quarterbacks up there, but I am still pretty high on Latavius Murray. I'm going to try and snag him. It's good to have him as if he blows up. I can't wait to just shift him right up into that Tariq Cohen RB2 area. So
I like how you built your team. You have Freeman, Coleman, and Murray along with them 4 receivers. It's pretty solid.
Yeah, I really like this strategy, the way it works out, where you go for those huge wide receivers, and then you don't have to worry about drafting a Dante Pettis or a Christian Kirk or an Alshon Jeffrey, and it's like, oh man, that's my wide receiver 3 or my flex, and could put up value, maybe not. You know what I mean?
See, now at this point, I feel like I can go any which way here. I think I'm going to try to take some upside picks. Darrell Henderson, by himself, I feel has standalone value. And then what round are we in? 9th round, Miles Sanders.
And it's crazy how fast that these rounds go. You don't even realize that you're in the 9th round right now.
I looked down. I'm like, what round are we in? 9? Whoa, 9th round?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't feel bad taking some of these guys now. It's like
for sure.
You're looking at like that Jordan Howard, and it's like, I'm in the 10th round. Oh, okay, I'll take Jordan Howard in the 10th round. So, I'm looking at
That's where I'm targeting Jordan Howard, Tyler, where you said it, 10th round and beyond, not single digits.
So, Jared Cook and Vance are on the board. I look at a lot of people behind me have tight ends, in front of me don't. I don't see anybody that I have to have. I could take the shot on like a Royce Freeman or a Kyler Murray, but I'm gonna lock up my Vance McDonald here. I definitely have him over Jared Cook. I do own Juju, which is kind of one thing that might have swayed me away.
No. That's going to be a passing offense. Don't worry about that.
And I'm not too high on Jared Cook like everyone else. I know that it was kind of hype when he first got to New Orleans, but we haven't seen another Jimmy Graham. And I don't think that we will because Breeze is going to leave and there's not going to be a tight end that's going to be another Jimmy Graham.
Tyler,
and
at this point, it looks like I'm going to land my guy.
Yeah. Are you taking I'm kind of thinking that you're thinking Kyler Murray.
I'm taking Kyler Murray if you don't because the next two guys have quarterbacks.
Okay.
So I would land them.
I'm going to I'm going to keep the QB for late and I went with Marvin Jones and he was somebody I'm not sure we talked on the podcast about him, but he has some sneaky value. He was the top 5 wide receiver a few years ago, and then everyone forgot about him because he was
a top 10.
Yeah. So
all right, Tyler. So Kyler Murray fell to me. In my QB rankings, I have him behind Baker Mayfield at 7. Call me crazy if you want. Just wait till the end of the year, boys.
Hey, I mean, I like the idea that you have behind it because you think about that Cam Newton type. I mean, Cam Newton's of course like a foot taller.
I'm not saying they're going to be a Super Bowl team, Tyler. I'm not saying they're even a playoff team, but fantasy football purposes, Kyler Murray's putting up numbers.
And like the point I was making is you come in as that rookie and you're supposedly that rushing quarterback. I feel like a lot of young guys come out to prove it, just like Lamar Jackson did. And I have a feeling that he's going to use his legs and it's going to create a really good floor. So any passing he has.
You got to think about it, though, Tyler. Yeah, that's a good point you made. And I literally didn't even think about that. Like his running ability by itself, what it can produce. He's going to be in an air raid offensive attack. They're going to be passing nonstop. Plus his wheels, I just think his upside is big. And he can finish higher than 7. I have him at 7 right now because I truly believe he finishes in that area.
Yeah, and like I said, I could agree with it just because of the way they're going to come out and they're going to attack. They have a decent offense. Have some good guys on in receiving, and they got DJ. So it only asks for good things. And now I looked at that Cam Newton. I started talking about him, and as soon as I looked down, I was like, okay, I see him. I took Cam Newton in the 11th, who could also be
Great
up
value.
there. And,
if he's healthy, Tyler, potential top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, here's Jerick McKinnon sitting in the 12th round. I mean, he might be somebody that I would just tell everyone stay away from. Don't even draft him. Don't even mess with that situation. And what I'm
right now at this moment, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I'm looking at like a Cortland Sutton. He's going to be the almost the one on his team. We have DK Metcalf. They said they're going to play him in the next game. I'm going to go with the upside in Cortland Sutton. Possibly he turns into a solid. I mean, I'm not going to say he's a Thomas, but he's going to be a solid wide receiver. So
he has potential to be. You never know. You never know where he could finish. He could be all over the board, but he has major potential. I was so hyped on the Kyler Murray pick that I forgot to talk about my pick after that. So at 10-9, I took Kyler Murray, and I forgot all about Curtis Samuel. I took at 11-2.
Good.
His value right there is insane. I also feel where like DJ Moore is going, just wait 4 more rounds and get Curtis Samuel.
Yeah,
it's
seriously.
going to be very similar production.
I would definitely agree on that, and I know I talked about that a few weeks ago. How Curtis Samuel is one of my my guys for wide receiver, and how I think he's going to possibly rival the number 1 on that team. So,
yep. I took Deshaun Jackson. I just feel good things coming out of camp between the connection of Wentz and Jackson. Jackson is a deep threat. He can only help Carson Wentz. Taking him at 12-9 right now is just I feel like it's a steal. It's between him or Dante Moncrief, which I feel now you're probably going to end up taking.
Yeah, I already had him highlighted.
I'm not going to take him here. My options right now are TJ Hawkinson or, more RB depth. I can't go wrong with that. Probably going to take a shot with, right now it's Peyton Barber potentially, because he could. He's nothing special.
And they're also talking about how Tampa Bay either he loses his job to Rojo or
we're gonna go a different direction. We're taking the boy, Matt Breida.
Okay. All right. He was one of the guys I was targeting late. I'm gonna go with my 2 RBs I was targeting late, but I do want to try and go for Dante Moncrief. I'm gonna go for running backs. I need to add some possible depth. I went with Kalen Ballage.
Moncrief went right after you then.
Yeah, Moncrief.
That guy was listening to you.
I'm hoping that the running back stays because I want to draft a couple possible upside. Yep, I'm taking Carlos Hyde. So I got Kalen Ballage and Carlos Hyde, and that was the 13-14.
Fair enough. You can have them.
All right. Thank you. I mean, we talked about him, then I'm like,
now this was my strategy. I'm going to implement this year. I'm going to do it right here. Every year I've taken only 1 QB. Now I'm going against what you're supposed to do in fantasy football and just take the 1 QB. But like I said, Kyler Murray is not a guarantee. So I'm going to take another high upside QB in Lamar Jackson right here. So I'm going to hopefully
ride the hype.
One of them hits, and then I'll be okay.
And I mean, Justin Jackson's right there as a possible running back to steal. And I'm looking at some guys in this round where Nyheim Hines, he's a possible PPR running back that you could use. Justin Jackson, if Gordon misses, they're gonna sprinkle him in.
There's a handful of running backs right here that could.
And I'm not high.
In. So what I'm gonna do, Tyler, I took Hunter Henry. He's coming off an injury. I'm gonna take another. This is another thing. I'm doing this year as well. I usually want 1 QB, 1 tight end. I'm going to take another one. I'm going to take Mark Andrews. So I have Mark Andrews and Hunter Henry, and then I have Kyler Murray, and I have Lamar Jackson. I just want to shore up the positions. And now the rest of the draft with my next pick, I can go wide receiver, running back, and then obviously kicker, defense.
Okay, well then that frees me up. I took Justin Jackson with the upside. I've taken a lot of upside running backs here with the wide receiver strategy that I had going on. And then another running back, it would be either between Devin Singletary or Dion Lewis. And I wanted to talk Dion Lewis
is safer.
Yeah, I'm not a high hopes guy for Derrick Henry. And then also there was news that Henry was a little banged up. So if he's banged up, give me Dion Lewis as the hype that was last year. And you're getting him for free. And what if he turns into the Dion Lewis of old, who was one of the better running backs that you could get from New England? So
Dion Lewis around 16. What that's an automatic.
Yeah, and what's funny is he just kind of falls there, and then everyone forgets about him. And I mean, I'm going to take Chris Thompson as well, as he was injured last year. I had him on my team, but you just forgoed kicker and defense here, right? Yeah, yep. Okay. So I got rid of all my kicker and defense and just wanted to go with players. I did that last year too with I think I drafted a defense at the last pick, and I looked at the schedule of who was going to be the first streamer, and then I just left kicker for I'll pick him up later and see what I have with a few of the running backs that possibly could get injured, and then you have a starting running back type.
Good strategy. I think I'll probably end up doing that in our draft because we're going to be drafted on the 24th of August, so we'll still have a week and a half before the season starts.
So, Ryan, run me down your team real quick.
A week and a half before the season starts, so I'm going to do that strategy as well. My team, so we're going to go with QB is Kyler Murray, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook as the dynamic duo at running back, which I really like. Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, Kenny Galladay. Hunter Henry, my flex, it's a little shaky, but I feel like I shouldn't be too worried. Robbie Anderson, he's the wide receiver 1 on the Jets. They're going to be losing a lot. They're going to want to get the guy the ball. And then kicker defense. And then my bench. Should we go over the bench?
If you want to just highlight a few people that you're excited about.
I mean, it'll be quick here. I got RB depth in Darrell Henderson, Miles Sanders, Matt Breida. And then my wide receivers on the bench, Curtis Samuel, Deshaun Jackson. And then I backed up. I'm trying to take some dart throws at QB here. So Lamar Jackson and then another tight end in Mark Andrews.
Okay, and
everyone has to understand I love the trade, so I'm taking a higher upside guys. If these guys hit, I'm going to ship them out and try to recoup and just get better throughout the year.
Exactly. I mean, that's a great strategy, and it's going to be some insight we're going to give you as the season's going on, and we're going to have some scheduled players that are hot to get rid of and players that are low to jump on. So that'll be a fun segment. My team is going to start off with quarterback Cam Newton. And then my wide receivers are DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, Keenan Allen, and a flex of Robert Woods. And then on my running back, I had to make up. I took a bunch of them. I got probably the starters are going to be Devonta Freeman and either Latavius Murray, Tevin Coleman, or Tariq Cohen. So any one of those three for the second. And then my depth here is I went with the upside with Marvin Jones,
Tyler. That is
Cortland Sutton.
You have so many running backs.
I got Vance McDonald at tight end, and then my backup running backs are going to be Kalen Ballage, Carlos Hyde, Justin Jackson, Deion Lewis, and Chris Thompson. So I'm just kind of throwing darts, and if any of these guys hit, it'll only make my wide receiver and my team look amazing. So, and this is the Ryan strategy right here.
What you do here, this is exactly what you do, Tyler. You did good because if any of these guys hit at running back, guess what? You're a championship contender if you get 2 running backs.
Yeah,
championship contender. Plus, there's always somebody in the first 2 weeks on waivers that you can get that will be probably your best running back potentially. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's similar. It's similar to like a Naeem Hines where he was on waivers and people picked him up and used him. And for PPR, he was serviceable. And if you have a wide receiver core like this wide receiver heavy draft I just had, they usually can build up and take over any bad running back performance. So
yeah, you got a strong team. I like it. I mean, I'm biased because I love RB0.
Yeah. And you do something kind of what you don't normally do, and you're kind of forced to take that running back early, and that's kind of what my upcoming draft is going to be like.
I took 2 running backs. I just like having a flex that outshines the rest of the league. Like that's where I love seeing that.
You had T.Y. Hilton last year, right?
Oh yeah, I had T.Y. in my flex last year. So I had Michael Thomas, Odell, Mike Evans, and T.Y.
And I mean, you hear that and you're like, oh man, it must have. You must be in a league with a bunch of morons. But it's really just trading and building your team. And
I did trade out of the first round last year though, so I traded out of the 7th pick and got a mid-second pick. So I took Michael Thomas with my first pick. Then I didn't have T.Y. I had Keenan Allen. It was Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, and what was the other receiver? I ended up having Odell somehow. I don't remember how.
Or did
I made some trades.
So that was kind of similar to what you're going to hear when it comes to the season, and Ryan is just going to coach you into building a all-star team.
Never mind. I got it, Tyler. This is what happened. I traded out of the first. So with my first round pick, Frank took Hopkins and Kamari ended up having. So he had 2 first rounders last year. I took Michael Thomas, Devonta Adams, Keenan Allen in the 3rd, and then it was T.Y. Hilton later in the 3rd because I had 2 seconds and 2 thirds.
Okay.
And then I just stacked up all the rookie running backs. I had Rashad Penny, Kerryon Johnson, Sony Michel, Royce Freeman. I can't remember the other ones.
Pretty much similar to what I just did, where it's like you get those solid wide receivers, and then you just load your bench. And like you had a Sony Michel that was like a 6th round pick, I think it was, or like 6th or 7th. Yep. And you just use those.
Was around there too.
Yep, and you use those 2 guys, and they were. I mean, Sony Michel got injured pretty early, but you use those guys when you could, and you just kept plugging and playing and winning games. So
and like. Our league is literally named Trading Days, so like every Tuesday we're all in the chat seeing who's available. So it's pretty loose on trades. It's not like insanely stupid, but it's fantasy football. If you're not trading, you're not trying. I literally live by that. Like if you're not trying to trade weekly, then you are so old school and you're just going to be left behind. Unless you ace your draft, you're just going to be left in the dust.
Yeah,
that's my true opinion on it. And Tyler, I truly feel you have picked up on that over the last few years because there's been years in the past where you didn't do anything and you just stuck with the team you drafted and then you missed the playoffs. You were like on the bubble multiple years in a row. And finally you're like, all right, I got to get involved.
Yeah, I've been a stone for a while. And really it comes down to having the time or just putting away time to message people. And you know that this is an investment to get into fantasy.
It's an addiction for me though, Tyler. Like I'm on it every day. I check it every day. If you don't, I guess I'm nuts. But I check it every day, all my leagues.
All right, let's jump into the questions. I have some real stumpers. Ryan has no idea. about these questions. I looked at them, and I'm going to do probably 2 out of the 3 here, because it's going to make Ryan sweat a little bit. So great. I'm going to start off with Ryan. I need you to rate these 4 guys. I'm going to give you 4 guys in a PPR format. They're all running backs. Give me your 1, 2, 3, and 4 that you would draft. You have Kerryon Johnson, Aaron Jones, Marlon Mack, and Dalvin Cook.
1 Dalvin Cook, 2 Kerryon Johnson, Aaron Jones, then Mack.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I would be very similar. In PPR,
you could flip-flop Mack and Jones, because Jones scares me with his hamstring injury already, but
yeah,
I feel like in that offense, him and Mack are very, very similar, but Dalvin Cook is for sure the 1, Kerryon Johnson, number 2, and then you can kind of go either way on the next 2.
Yep, I totally agree on that. Cook, Kerryon, Jones, Mack, and I am not very high on Mack, and then the Jones injury just puts him kind of in that same. So
if you ask me why I'm not high on Mack, I don't know. Like
it's a feeling.
I just have the feeling, dude.
It is. It's a feeling.
It's literally a feeling. I have nothing to back it up, which is sad. I just have that feeling that he's not gonna like present the value where you're taking him.
Yeah, and the only thing that gives me that feeling is of last year. I did own him. I had him in his hot streak of like four games in a row.
Yeah.
And then I traded him right away, and then he went downhill.
And he fell off, yeah.
Yep.
And they have a top 5 offensive line, though. Like, they've literally vastly improved it.
Yeah.
I mean, they had it last year, though, too.
It'll be interesting.
It's tough
we'll
to
watch
say,
it.
But
we're going to rank him off kind of feelings. Like
literally a feeling. Like, it's so funny that you have it, too, though. How do you have the same feeling?
Seriously, I just think we have the same mindset when it comes to a few of these guys. Marlon Mack, just his demeanor, like the person he is, just comes off as maybe I shouldn't have him as high as I do, and high as a lot of people do. So
yeah, for sure.
We'll come up with maybe a little more reasoning behind that. And the last question, and this is one that maybe you can answer right away. To me, it was almost a no-brainer, and I think for you it's going to be a no-brainer. I got a trade here, and it's a wide receiver running back combo for a wide receiver running back. We have DJ Moore and Phillip Lindsay trading for Kenny Galladay and Miles Sanders.
Kenny G and Sanders, give me that.
Yep, that's what I clicked too.
Give me that.
I kind of described it as we don't know what Phillip Lindsay. I guess we don't know Miles Sanders either, but I don't know actually. Now that I think about it, Phillip Lindsay's still going to get some.
Phillip Lindsay's not. Everyone's so scared that it's going to be a 50-50 split, and even if it is, hey, they did sign Theo Riddick though, and that's not just for depth. I don't feel like they're going to use him in the pass catching role. So that does hurt Lindsay. That doesn't hurt Freeman. That hurts Lindsay.
But then Sanders has so many people in the backfield that are just
but if there's been multiple reports saying he's the best running back in camp, like I said, come week 6, week 7, Miles Sanders could have the job locked up.
And let's talk about wide receivers here. Kenny G, I know you're
I'd take Kenny G over DJ Moore every time.
Yeah. They're Kenny G's up a few rounds before him.
If there was no Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore would warrant
I don't think so. I don't even know if that's even true.
He would, because he could. If there was no talent behind DJ Moore, that offense is only gonna that. It can only produce one wide receiver, one if that. And with DJ Moore and Samuel both on the team, I feel it's gonna be a flip flop every week. That's why I said, take Samuel's later in the 10th or 11th instead of DJ Moore in the 5-6. Because by the end of the year, I feel production is going to be damn close.
Yeah, they're going to be very similar wide receivers in my mindset.
Because they're going to counter, I feel like they just counteract each other.
How I think of those two wide receivers is DJ Moore is going to be more of the boomer bust wide receiver. And it makes me feel like they're more of like the old Raiders, where you had Cooper Kupp, who was up and down, and then you had Crabtree, who was the solid.
You said Raiders?
Yeah.
You said Cooper Kupp.
I'm sorry. Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper
okay.
is the boomer bust, and then you have Crabtree, who actually outperformed Cooper.
Yeah, he did.
And it was surprising.
It was
like
going
people
in second or third round, and Crabtree was going around 10. That's that's kind of it's potentially what could happen. I feel like Curtis Samuel is going to be the guy with more receptions, but DJ Moore may
yardage wise.
It's a hard situation, man. It just is.
Okay, well, we got through those questions. Pretty decent trades. It would be one of those ones where you get sent and you have to think about it a little bit. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. That's going to do it for us here.
Anytime we do a mock
notes?
draft, my friend. Anytime we do a mock draft, I'm excited. I love mock drafting, and I feel it's mock draft season. Like,
yes,
it should be a mock draft damn near every episode if they go fast. And I feel like this one went pretty damn fast.
And maybe we can make
itself.
a show out of it where we do like mock draft Monday, and then we'll talk about other stuff. Our rankings. We'll talk about our rankings on our second episode of the week. And we're just going to kind of hit you guys with a lot of information. We're going to start sending stuff out. Try to get more people listening to us. I feel like we have a lot of knowledge that we're going to share with everybody. And it's a lot of knowledge that is taken in from multiple sources, multiple pros out there that have different mindsets. We're going to take it all, and then we're going to give it to you guys in our voice, our thinking, and we're going to process, I think, a great ranking sheet. I'm super excited to look at how good we do at the end, and I'm pretty confident. Looking at other pros, I know that we talked about fantasy pros out there. Their ranking sheet looks awfully ADP compared to everybody else. So we're here to be... We'll have a few guys similar, but I have a feeling that we're going to be a little bit farther off the mark on other guys that might be a lot more accurate. So I guess you can find us. Look it down in the show notes. We're pretty much everywhere. Just make sure that you follow us, you rate, subscribe, comment. It all helps us.
Dude, a like and a comment goes a long way. It just shows it just gives us reassurance that we are reaching out to, even if it's like 5 people, dude. Like, you know what I mean? That you're enjoying the content.
And I really don't know who's listening
for whatever. You know what I mean?
If you're kind of just phantom listening, or it's something you just turn on, just take a couple seconds just to whatever you're on. Throw in a 5-star for us and throw a comment in there. It only takes a few minutes, and you won't understand how much that's going to help push us to answer those ratings, and then also push forward when it comes to talking to more people. I want to know who's all out there listening and who we're all reaching to. So make sure you go down there. We have a ton more content coming, and the season's right around the corner. So
I'm excited, Tyler.
I mean,
oh my God,
just seeing football is exciting. So, yeah, you would set it up for tomorrow.
I would if everyone was cool with it. No, I'm just kidding. You cannot draft before week 3 of the preseason.
No. All right, everyone, have a good night, and enjoy the rest of your week.